The soft drizzle descended upon the Redwood National Park, turning the air into a shimmering silver veil that draped over the massive trunks.
Ilara stepped lightly over the mossy floor, her boots making no sound against the damp needles of the ancient forest.
Suddenly, a low vibration hummed through the earth, a sound so deep it was felt in the bones rather than heard by the ears.
From behind a curtain of ferns, a giant stag emerged, its antlers branching out like the limbs of the very trees it lived among.
The stag's eyes were pools of molten gold, reflecting the wisdom of centuries spent in the quiet shadows of the giants.
Ilara held out her hand, and the drizzle seemed to pause in mid-air, suspended by a sudden surge of ancient magic.
The whispers began, faint, melodic voices that seemed to emanate from the bark of the trees themselves, telling tales of the world's beginning.
A giant bear, as large as a cottage and covered in thick emerald moss, lumbered into the clearing to join the gathering. The bear bowed its massive head to Ilara, acknowledging her as the chosen guardian of the Whispering Woods.
Together, they moved toward the heart of the grove, where the oldest tree, the grandfather redwood, stood in silent vigil.
The drizzle intensified, turning into a rhythmic tapping that sounded like 1,000 tiny fingers drumming on the broad leaves.
Ilara noticed a dark, creeping shadow at the edge of the grove, the blight of silence, which sought to drown the forest's songs. The giant stag let out a resonant bell-like call, its antlers lighting up the dim woods with a fierce, purifying radiance.
As the light touched the dark shadow, the whispers of the trees grew louder, turning into a powerful chorus of protection.
A giant owl, with a wingspan that could cover a village square, swooped down from the high canopy, its feathers tipped with silver.
The owl dropped an ancient seed into Ilara's palm, a seed made of pure crystallized starlight.
She knelt at the roots of the grandfather redwood and pressed the seed into the rich, dark soil. Immediately, vines of light began to climb the trunk, weaving through the cracks in the bark like glowing veins of gold. The blight of silence shrieked, a soundless scream that made the very air tremble as it was forced back by the forest's renewed life.
The giant bear roared, a sound of triumph that shook the raindrops from the leaves in a sudden, sparkling cascade.
Peace returned to the grove, and the drizzle transformed into a warm, golden mist that smelled of pine and ancient secrets. The giant animals gathered around Ilara, their forms glowing softly in the twilight of the deep woods.
The grand redwood spoke, its voice a deep creak of wood and rustle of leaves. You have preserved the melody of the world.
Ilara felt the connection to every living thing in the park, from the smallest beetle to the tallest giant.
A bridge of living roots rose from the ground, inviting her to explore the deeper, more hidden parts of the redwood realm.
The giant fox, with 9 tails that flickered like blue flames, appeared to lead her across the root bridge.
As they walked, the trees whispered secrets of healing, teaching Ilara how to mend the wounds of the earth. The rain began to turn into tiny floating orbs of light, each one containing a memory of the forest.
Ilara reached out and touched an orb, seeing a vision of the first sapling that ever grew in this sacred place.
The giant stag nudged her shoulder, encouraging her to keep moving toward the great waterfall of whispers.
The waterfall was not made of water, but of liquid starlight that cascaded down a cliff of black obsidian.
Ilara bathed her hands in the starlight, feeling her strength and magic grow 100-fold. The giant animals let out a collective howl, roar, and cry, celebrating the return of the forest's full power. The drizzle finally stopped, and the clouds parted to reveal a sky filled with stars that seemed much closer than before.
A giant lynx with fur like the night sky stepped out from the shadows, its paws leaving glowing footprints on the damp earth.
The ancient woods are awake, and they will never sleep again.
Ilara looked up at the towering redwoods, realizing they were not just trees, but the pillars holding up the heavens. The animals began to fade back into the forest, their mission complete, leaving Ilara as the bridge between their world and hers.
She sat at the base of the grandfather redwood, listening to the final, gentle whispers of the night.
The Redwood National Park breathed a deep, satisfied sigh, safe under the watchful eyes of its new guardian and its ancient giants.